iRacing is arguably the most influential online racing simulation service in the world. There are a few keywords to understand here, that being online, simulation, and service. The first being obvious, that being online, meaning you can race against anyone in the world. Simulation, as it is designed and modeled to be as realistic as possible with its physics and laser scan cars and tracks. And service. iRacing is a service-based title, meaning you have to pay a monthly subscription to drive. iRacing replicates road racing, oval racing, endurance racing, and dirt racing in the forms of rallycross and pro trucks. With iRacing's licensing system, drivers of similar skill level can race against each other, providing a challenging and competitive experience. So who is iRacing for? iRacing is for racing enthusiasts of all levels, from rookies looking to perfect their skills, all the way up to professional drivers looking for the highest levels of competition. With a wide variety of virtual race cars and tracks to choose from, iRacing provides a customizable and dynamic racing experience that can cater to the preferences of any driver. With accurate physics modeling, tire wear and damage, and weather effects that mimic real-world conditions, including rain coming soon. iRacing provides a level of realism that can help professional drivers and teams prepare for the challenges of real-world racing. I'm Sean Cole, this is the Simpit, and today we're here to do a modern or an updated review of iRacing. This will be the first in a series of videos where we reevaluate the top sims in our industry and see how they actually hold up in 2023. iRacing is what I would call an evolving sim, so instead of annual releases like a box title, they do quarterly updates that have modernizations and improvements to the sim that can even include new cars and new tracks. One of the greatest features of iRacing is the ability to race in just about every type of racing out there. The basic subscription comes with 19 cars and 25 tracks included with the game and all of its features. This will set you back somewhere between $8 and $13 a month, depending on how you sign up. iRacing has cars, tracks, and racing series that cater to road racing, both in open wheelers or tin tops. And the same thing goes for oval racing, with both open wheelers and tin tops again. There's also dirt racing on iRacing in various forms, with oval racing on dirt tracks and anything from a street stock Camaro to a full snorting winged sprint car. In addition to that, they have rallycross racing, as well as dirt truck racing, on purpose-built tracks for that, all within one sim. In total, this adds up to well over 130 tracks with over 350 configurations and well over 120 cars to choose from. That is, if you bought all the content. We're going to get back to that later. So I think one of the best ways to show you some of what's going on in iRacing is by also at the same time showing you the user interface, which it has the dated web-based version that we're looking at here. And they also have the new UI, as they like to call it, which is a little bit more of a shell environment than just a straight web page. But you can pretty much do the same thing from either one. There are a couple extra features on the new UI that you can't do on the old one, like paint your cars. But for the most part, everything we really need is right here. For example, if we want to race, we can go to the Racing tab and look at the series, and it shows you all of the different types of racing available that you can go join practice sessions for, qualifying sessions for, as well as get into races. You can then select it by whatever type of racing. So if you only want to look, we're looking at road series, we could switch that and look at oval. This is also, I'm going to switch to the old UI because I think it shows it in a better way. It also shows the licensing system. So we have our rookie class, followed by our D class series, followed by our C class series, B, and so on all the way up to A class and Pro. We're right here just looking at the oval ladder system, but if we were to switch things over, we could switch it over to road, and see the exact same type of list. So we have our rookie followed by D, C, B, and A class, and all of the different racing that you have available on iRacing for road racing in their ladder system that utilizes that safety rating and that iRating to rank drivers to race against drivers of the same level. Here we are looking at some dirt oval and the ladder system that we have there. In addition to that, we also have hosted section. So right here is a whole list of rooms that are hosted by individuals. I could host a room right now, just set up any car, track combination, any time of day, any weather effects, anything I want to do to the room I can do. And you can see a whole selection of rooms and various combinations. This is exactly how we do Ricmotech Hot Lap Pump Day. In addition to that, we have our league directory. So the Simpit runs both a road and an oval series, and it's done through the league. So if you go to league sessions, you'll see a whole list of various leagues out there that are running maybe oval, maybe dirt, maybe road. You can see what kind of cars they're running, what kind of tracks they're running, and you can choose leagues that you might want to participate in. And you yourself could start your own league. You just pick a selection of tracks, you set the conditions, you open it up for others to join, you just pay the small fee per session in order to make that happen. Other things, if you needed other cars, you were going to buy cars, you could go to the store and see what cars are available. I haven't purchased the Renault Clio, but there it is if I wanted to purchase it, and with my discount it would be $11.95. Same thing goes for the tracks right here as well. And I own all the tracks, look at that. Then you have your replays. If you want to see any of your replays, they're all saved here. Well, you have to manually save or set it to auto save your replays. But you can see all the replays that I have saved here, and you could load any of them or just look at the results of those particular races that you had saved. So if you want to look at any of the stats from the race, they're all available. Then when it comes to stats, this is really an area where I feel that iRacing, I'm going to switch to the new UI for this actually, just to show how you can use either interchangeably. Right here you see my licenses. So I do have an A class 4.9 safety rating in, in oval. And then in the road I have a class A 3.52. And then in the dirt oval, I only have a class C, and in dirt road, which is rallycross, I only have a class D. So I need to do some work there on those two. And it shows you your requirements to license up. So in order for me to graduate all the conditions I need to meet right here, I've run 1 of 4 MPR races. So 3 more and I could get my license if I get my safety rating up to a 3.0. In addition to that, you can look at your friends and see their stats as well. So let's see here. Let's pull up Andrew Fayash. And Andrew is an iRacing pro from Pennsylvania. We can pull his name up, look at all of his licenses as well, and see his stats and some of his results. So all of this, being able to look up the stats, the results, the rankings of other drivers, the rankings and results from all the races that you've run, it is all built into the user interface. And I will say, there's so much going on that it actually takes some time to find everything. It's not super duper intuitive, but there is a whole lot here to cover, more than I can even cover during the show. Real quick, I'll just take us to the paint shop just to give you a quick idea. We're not spending nearly enough time on paint because it is really cool. You have templates where you can literally set up pre-done color schemes. So here are their templates on the bottom. Oh, I'm using a trading paint, so it's actually showing my trading paint scheme. So here is the Audi R8, and they do have a bunch of different templates, and you can just click on one and you can preload some paint schemes. So these are my colors. I can just apply different variations real quickly because I've set them all up. Or you could just change the color at any time of any of the colors in the template. So if you want to make it black, you could just bring this right down there, and that actually changes that. So there are cool things. And then there are some sponsors. So we could go down and actually pick the Simpit. That would be a great sponsor for our car. And let's see, we are on the list here in iRacing. Thank you, iRacing, for that. And we put some Simpit logos. There you go, big Simpit on the side of our Audi. and you can select your number in advance if you want and make some changes to like the wheel color. So lots that you can do with the user interface. Again, it's a little clunky. It's not super flashy. It's not super fancy, but it does get the job done rather well. The best way to talk about the driving experience in iRacing is definitely out on track. So I've loaded up a solo session, a test session, so we're all alone, so we won't get in the way of anybody. That way we can talk about driving, and we'll cover a lot of aspects of the sim when covering driving alone. Each car in iRacing has a very distinct handling feeling that is unique to that car alone. With most of the cars being laser scanned, they are all very highly detailed both from the outside and inside of the cockpits. I'll go more into detail on that when we talk about graphics, but right now I want to focus on driving. iRacing has a very distinct feeling when you are driving cars. Each and every car feels unique in its own ways, but the underlying physics have a commonality based on the car's relationship with its terrain. iRacing does a great job of translating those forces into the wheel via force feedback, allowing you to make those micro adjustments to control the car. There's a great sense of weight transfer going on at the most critical moments, keeping you on the edge, attempting to perfectly navigate the race cars on the tracks. After all, this is not Sunday driving on the highway. This is racing at the threshold of a car's abilities. We could be talking about swaying the car going down the straights for feeling, or it could be pushing the car's limits through a chicane, but you feel that transfer of body weight as you throw the car, and more importantly, you feel when you have crossed the limits of the car and all is lost. The same is true for the acceleration and braking forces in iRacing. As you feel the rear end of the car squat under acceleration or dip its nose under braking. These are the physics at work, combined with the force feedback delivered to you at lightning speed. But for me, it is the moment of quarter entry that really shows off the physics at work in iRacing. When we are combining the forces of braking and turning, you can feel exactly what is happening with the suspension, the tires, the brakes, all at once. That is, if you are at proper corner speed or reasonably close. However, for those who can't respect corner speed and the tire's ability to hold the road, they will be sent careening off the corner. And this is why you might hear iRacing referred to at times as ice racing. Yes, you will need to respect corner speed. After all, this is a simulation, not a game. When you do keep the car within those limits, you are gifted with a car driving model that allows you to feel the very limits of that grip. The slightest amount over the slip angle, and you feel it in the wheel. That is, when you're really in the groove. As iRacing offers different types of racing, we can talk about the moment of quarter entry in those types of racing as well. Take, for example, oval racing. Granted, anyone can drop the hammer and point their nose in the right direction on super speedways, but it is the smaller tracks that again best show off the way iRacing works. When lifting off the gas, the car immediately reacts to the momentum-mental change and shifting of weight that occurs. Even the speed in which you lifted the throttle will affect how the car reacts to that moment. This can artfully send the car into the corner at the right speed and the right angle to make the turn. However, the wrong speed or the wrong change in balance will result in over-rotation on entry or failing to make the corner and slamming into the wall. Adding the brake into the mix on an even shorter track, and it just multiplies the parameters of that consistent feeling, that predictable handling that is iRacing. I could go on and on explaining these feelings that for me really parallel real-life racing in a simulated way. This is true when we take to the dirt and talking about Scandinavian flicks or correcting a car mid-air with throttle and brake for rotation. All these physics are covered in iRacing. In describing the way iRacing drives, I've really focused on corner entry as it tests the most forces at one time. A big part of this is the timing of the force feedback and also our inputs back into the game. Coming off corners when driving iRacing, we get a good understanding of this. No matter what form of driving you are in, as we get on the gas, the momentum of the car is shifted towards the rear and it compresses the rear suspension while lifting the front. The amount of suspension and its tuning and the amount of grip to the ground will affect just how much this happens, and so will your inputs as drivers. Too much steering input with throttle will cause the rear end to move and lose traction just as you would expect. Every action has an opposite reaction, and we are always balancing the pendulum that is our race car. The physics of iRacing make this predictable and consistent, allowing you to learn from your mistakes and make improvements on each and every lap. While in the car on the track, we can talk about other aspects of iRacing as well. For example, the graphics. And I'm going to be the first one to admit I have a love-hate relationship with the graphics in iRacing. The graphics do look dated to me, and they remind me of playing games from about a decade ago. There's something super simplistic about them when comparing iRacing to other modern sims. Part of this is the color palette of iRacing that comes off a bit pastel or flat in color and lacks in shading of the real world. There is something artificial and almost cartoonish as iRacing is blatantly drawn and would rarely be called photorealistic. Now with that said, it is not all bad when it comes to graphics. Despite the downside of the flashy graphics, on a functional level, iRacing kicks ass. I get better frame rates with more features turned on in iRacing than any other sim, by far. So while other sims might require some super duper over the top modern computer water cooled this RGB that just to run them at medium level, iRacing will run on just about any computer out there as long as you have a decent graphics card. So in the end, you are trading a lot of eye candy and beauty for frame rates. And when it comes to sim racing, I'm going to take frame rates. iRacing runs smooth and fast on reasonable machines, and that is a very good thing for many people. Another aspect of graphics is how things are actually rendered and how much detail we see on cars and the trackside environments. The car modeling in iRacing is top-notch, and the cars are done in tremendous detail. That part is fantastic, and some of the detail of the moving parts on cars is really cool to see while out there in the track racing, like half shafts turning or exhaust flares from the pipes. The crash modeling has seen a lot of improvements over the years and has actually become one of the better ones amongst racing sims. The cars show signs of light wear from rubbing against others, and they show heavier damage with harder hits from the wall, and we are to the point where cars are starting to deconstruct in big crashes. Granted, we are still a long way from realistic when it comes to visual damage, but this is a racing sim, not a crashing sim. When talking about the environments, I have already slammed iRacing for its dated looks. But on the other hand, when it comes to the tracks, the detail is remarkable. The obvious things like grandstands, water towers, and other iconic features that make each track unique will be displayed, of course. But it's the secondary items that are critical to a driver who really knows that track, and having off-track items like trees or buildings being exactly where they belong to help you visually place your car on the track and set up corners is critical and fantastically done in iRacing. While it lacks in certain depth and colors of real life, you would still swear you were really at these places based on the exactness of every inch of the location. Another part of the driving experience are the sounds, and this is another area that iRacing could definitely see some improvement. Just like the graphics, there's a certain vibrance that is missing when it comes to our expectations of what a roaring race engine sounds like. iRacing comes off a bit muted when compared to other sims. However, with that said, iRacing sounds are unique to each car, and they usually do a good job of letting you know what you're running. I also find that while not super exciting, there is something that is absolutely perfect about the speed of the sounds, the synchronization with the game, the timing and relationship between what you see, what you hear, and what you feel is very well matched, and this makes the sounds an integral part of the driving experience. It is often the audio cues that let me know I'm spinning my rear tires, and I am able to quickly make those adjustments. To put it simply, these are very usable sounds, if that makes any sense. Everything that we've talked about up until this point has been about driving the car or the driving experience of iRacing, but it's really about racing against others. iRacing excels in its multiplayer or its matchmaking ability, and there are a bunch of different ways to race against others on iRacing, and it's all built into the system. There is no third-party app or running your own servers. It's all part of iRacing. Starting with anyone who wants to host their own race or league races that have been set up will all be hosted on iRacing servers for a small fee. The person or league can set all the rules and allow anyone to join them or not. In addition, the iRacing official series are obviously run on their own servers, but are restricted by licenses. This creates a ladder system for each discipline of racing within their system. By competing in races, you will earn safety rating by finishing races without contact or going off track. When you have enough points, you will earn a higher license and be able to race at that next level. In addition to the safety rating is the iRating. This rating is purely based on your finishing position in races. The higher you place in official races, the more points you earn. The iRacing matchmaking system will then split drivers up against drivers of similar iRating levels. This keeps the racing as fair and even as possible and keeps you running against drivers of similar skill level. There are individual licenses and rating for each type of racing individually. I really do want to take a moment to talk about the racing in iRacing. After all, it is in the title and it is one of the greatest aspects of iRacing. Now, everything we talked about driving carries over into this portion. It just ups the ante or increases the intensity when you're doing it with others. There are races going on 24/7. So for example, the street stock here, you can see we have a race at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 46 people signed up for the next race. It'll split that amongst their iRating, and that'll keep it fair amongst everybody else. We could go to the GT3 series, for example. And you can see the next race is at 10:15 with 35 people already signed up, with the following race at 12:15 every 2 hours in that particular series. So all of these series have their own schedules. They have hourly or every other hour racing going on 24/7. I also find that the iRacing servers run very well for the most part, and any lagging issues seems to be driver dependent. Like in a big grid of cars, there can be someone with a bad connection and their car will be blinking. But in iRacing, this happens much less than other sims outside of ones hosted on very good private servers. This makes the multiplayer aspect of iRacing one of its greatest features and separates it from other sims. This includes the special events that iRacing hosts. This can be the virtual Daytona 500s, open to all drivers, reaching all the way to the virtual 24-hour team endurance races. In all cases, they use the iRating system to match drivers evenly in events with thousands of drivers. And sometimes you can even find some of your favorite sim racers or real-life racers in some of those lobbies. Drivers like Tony Kanaan, Rubens Barrichello, or even Max Verstappen can be found on the service. Now I want to get back to what I consider the Achilles heel of iRacing, and that being its cost. It is a very expensive simulation. I already told you that it's a subscription service, so it's going to cost you that $8 to $13 a month, depending on how you sign up, and that does get you the basic service and all of the online racing, along with the 19 different cars and 25 different tracks, which does sound like a lot.
But wait! There's more! Hang on to your seat, baby, cause this one's a screamer!
As we've discussed, at this point there are over 125 cars and tracks in iRacing. I have honestly lost count. So if someone were to sign up today for a 2-year membership and buy all of the content, even with discounts, you'd be looking at over $3,500. Yeah, just let that sink in for a minute. So how can I justify that kind of money for a simulation when I can buy F1 whatever for 40 to 60 bucks? And to be honest with you, sim to sim, I'm not sure that you could justify that kind of money. but you don't have to. If you were to buy all of the content right out of the gate, it would be absurd. It would take you months to even get to all of the content. So it just takes a little
strategery.
The basic subscription includes enough content to get you started in any direction of racing that you want to go with, that being oval, road, or in the dirt. So that is $200 for 2 years, and you can even get it cheaper than that. From there, it's best to buy content as needed to pursue the ladder system you want to be a part of, or to fulfill the requirements of a league you might join. This keeps iRacing in line with other sims out there that have regular DLC that you might be paying for anyway. However, there is no denying iRacing is the most expensive sim out there by a long shot. Now, by contrast, an area that iRacing really excels is that iRacing just works. It is the most compatible sim when it comes to hardware. It runs on smaller computers than most other sims, and it has worked with every single piece of hardware that I have ever tested. Wheels, pedals, shifters, handbrakes, displays, motion systems, single screens, triple screens, VR, the list goes on, and for the most part, if it's plugged into your computer, you're going to be able to map it to work in the game. Another great feature of iRacing is its depth. There are so many features to cover about iRacing that if we did them all, this review would be an hour long. Things like painting your car, the stats on you and other drivers, replay mode, broadcasting, the path to esports. There are so many things that do make iRacing a great sim other than things we've covered. So I'm going to go ahead and try to summarize a few of these and other things about iRacing in the good, the not so good, and the bottom line. Starting off with the good, and that being, it's a highly realistic simulation of racing. Large and active community of players. High level of competition. Best multiplayer racing environment. Regular updates and improvements. Great force feedback. Extensive selection of cars and tracks. Licensing system built in. Rules, regulations, and consequences. Works with all gear. Best controller support. Road, oval, dirt racing, all in one sim. Works on lesser computers. Detailed and realistic setup options. Easy to paint your own cars. Basic. Trading paints, third-party app for incredible paint jobs. And now on to the not so good, and you know the first one, that being, it's expensive. Dated looking graphics. Tough to navigate at first. No single player career mode. iRental, you don't own anything. Obsolete purchases. Very demanding, not a game. Highly competitive, not always friendly. Can be difficult to drive at first. And now on to the bottom line. With the advancement in nearly all sims out there on the market, they all bring something great to the table nowadays. And no one sim is absolutely perfect. And for one person, one sim might feel great, and that same person might feel another sim doesn't feel so great for the way they like to drive or the driving experience that they're looking for. But all the sims out there offer some great features, and it's really hard nowadays to really say one sim is better than another sim. Now, with that said, iRacing is where I find myself driving the most, so you might call me biased. Some are definitely going to call me biased for my positive review or take on iRacing, but it's not even the sim itself that I think separates it from the other sims. It's some of the other features, funny enough, like the controller support, the fact that it works on so many computers and with so many different options. It's just an easy to use sim when it comes to that kind of stuff. And then It's the multiplayer, it's the licensing system, it's the iRating system, it's the being matched against players or drivers of similar level, making sure that it is the best racing possible. And that is probably the biggest reason that I've been a loyal fan to iRacing for so many years, but I'm not trying to take away from any of the other sims out there. So I hope you've enjoyed this, the first in a series of videos where we are going to look at the top sims and see how they do in 2023, because it's kind of hard to evaluate a sim when it's constantly changing versus the F1 whatever type titles or the Madden-esque titles that have an annual box cover where it's pretty cut and dry when to start and stop or do a new review. Again, I hope you've enjoyed this one, and if you have, you be sure to give us a thumbs up, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you can find out when our next one comes out. But most of all, thank you for watching. This is the Simpit. I'm Sean Cole, and I'll see you on the track.